Good morning. You are listening to Tiffanie Talks with Tiffanie Lanelle. It is a beautiful day of new leadership in America, and we are all so very, very grateful. If you missed the special yesterday, Boss FM BNA covered the inauguration. We had live coverage with myself and Alex Haynes yesterday for a majority of the day, where we covered the election, where we covered the inauguration activities, all of the traditional ceremonies and everything else that normally happens, of course, had to be tailored due to the pandemic, but it was still a beautiful day, a beautiful ceremony. I really enjoyed it. So of course I won't summarize it too much because most of you have already watched it, seen it, heard clips of the speeches, even if you didn't watch it, all of that. So I won't do all of that today. But what I will do is highlight for you some of the work that has already been done. They wasted absolutely no time. Both of them have operated in their capacities already. So I'll talk a little bit about that. A lot of executive orders were signed yesterday, with more to come today. So I'll be sure to break down all of that for you today. It is also Throwback Thursday. So another segment that I'm introducing this season is Throwback Thursday, where you'll get a throwback fun fact, a story, or something else. But today you'll get a Throwback Thursday tidbit towards the latter part of the show. And it's just going to be a good show because it's going to be a good day because we have a new president. And I'm going to try not to say that throughout the show today, but we have a new president, and I rejoice because we have a new president. I'm going to try to make that the last time I say that. It probably won't be, but I'm going to do my very, very best for you. Okay, that's all I can give you. Today's inspirational quote comes from Pastor Stephen Furtick of Elevation Church. He says, "Your tolerance for tension determines your potential for growth." Your tolerance for tension determines your potential for growth. I really like this quote. The quote comes from one of his sermons that I happened upon called Make Room for the New. And in his sermon, don't worry, I'm not about to sit here and re-preach his whole sermon or anything like that. But in his sermon, he uses the scripture Leviticus 26:10, which says, "You will still be eating the previous year's harvest when the time will come to clear it out to make room for the new." So that goes along with the quote. Sometimes you have to go through tension moments, tension actions and activities in order to make room for the new in your life. That could mean getting rid of a friendship you should get rid of, getting out of that toxic relationship, building up a relationship or fixing a broken relationship, getting out of the job you hate and getting into something you love, making your passion your career instead of sitting and doing something you absolutely hate doing. It means telling that person no so that you can tell yourself yes. That is what it means to make room for the new. I really like this scripture in Leviticus because a lot of people don't read Leviticus, including me. I used to hate Leviticus. I actually didn't like Leviticus would just skip all of those books of the Bible because it just seemed senseless to me. But the blessing in Leviticus is, yes, it's a lot of instruction and it's a lot of you do this, you do that, you do that. But it also is a reminder of the covenant that God gives us, that God will give us the blessings for our hard work. And sometimes, whether you are a believer or not a believer, you have to put in some work in order to get to the other side, in order to make room for the new, in order to get your blessings, in order to get that next job, get that next relationship, get that friend that you've been looking for, get that mentor you've been trying to get whatever it is, start your career, start your own business, any of that. It takes some work and it takes some tension. It's going to be some hard times, but those won't always last. You just have to get through them. So if you are working to try and make room for something new in your life today, I want to encourage you to keep going. Get through the tension part of that storm. Get through the tension part of your journey, because on the other side of it, I promise it will be beautiful. more Tiffanie Talks after this quick break.
This is Tiffanie Talks with Tiffanie Lanelle.
What's up? You're listening to Tiffanie Talks with Tiffanie Lanelle. So, President Biden got straight to work, and I mean straight to work. So yesterday he signed 17 executive actions. What does that mean? It means it could be an executive order, it could be an executive proclamation, it could be a number of things, but he signed 17 of them, okay? 3 of them had to do with COVID-19. So he already put together a COVID-19 office of response, and that is to help with testing efforts, testing abilities, vaccine dissemination, all of that. So he put together a COVID-19 office that will help direct all of that. That's not one of his executive actions. That's just something he put together. He did start a 100 days masking challenge, calling for a nationwide mask and social distancing across all federal buildings, federal land, and all federal employees and contractors. He does not have the power to mandate a mask, do a mask mandate nationwide. He can only do that on federal property. But of course, the strong suggestion is for it to be nationwide, not just on federal ground, but everywhere. So that was one. He also rejoined the World Health Organization. The Trump administration was leaving the World Health Organization, which is something we've been a part of for quite some time. But President Biden is trying to reestablish some of the international relationships that were damaged during the Trump administration, and this is one. So he's trying to get us back, he is rejoining the World Health Organization, which really monitors literally world health. So when we're in the middle of a pandemic, it was not a very good idea to leave the World Health Organization. So President Biden is rejoining that. Biden also brought back a position from Obama's administration called the Directorate for Global Health Security and Biodefense. Of course, that office was moved about during the Trump administration, but the Biden administration says basically we need this position in order to have a good response, and they are arguing that it basically handicapped the federal response to the COVID-19 pandemic. So that person is going to, that position will give all of the reports to the president on the vaccine, testing, masks, and different, personal protection equipment, production, where it's going, how it's going, all of that. Jeff Zients is going to be overseeing the team. He's been overseeing the COVID-19 team during the transition. He was part of Biden's transitional team, so he'll be a part of those efforts as well. Now, in terms of financial assistance for Americans during the pandemic, we already had an extension to April. He being President Biden, of course, is looking to extend the eviction and foreclosure moratoriums that have been in place. They were set to expire in December, and then late in the midnight hour, we got that extension. But he's looking to, we got the financial package that they passed literally in the late hour in December. So he is looking to extend the moratorium until at least March 31st. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that will probably be extended again, but do not quote me on that and do not rely on that because I'm just making an educated guess. He's also going to call for the Department of Agriculture, HUD, Housing and Urban Development, and Veteran Affairs to extend the foreclosure moratoriums for federally backed mortgages. So that is more than 11 million mortgages guaranteed by those departments that would be extended. He's also looking to pause, and I heard someone mention this yesterday, student loans. He's looking to pause student loan payments until September 30th. That is huge. Now, he made a pledge during his campaign to cancel $10,000 of student loans. That, of course, is going to take some time. But in the meantime, the pause on student loan payments until September 30th will be a really, really big help because climate change. I've talked about climate change on here before and on other shows. We should not have left the Paris climate agreement. It just should not have happened. Climate change is a real threat to us, to our Earth. And so he's looking to rejoin the Paris climate agreement that, of course, also took place under the Obama administration. The Trump administration left the climate agreement. And so it'll take about 30 days for that to go into effect, but he is looking to rejoin that agreement. He is also ending the Keystone Pipeline and revoking oil and gas development at national wildlife monuments. I've had quite a few conversations about the pipeline. It is it continues the atrocities of our federal government encroaching on property and land and just trying to do whatever they want. And it's been harmful. It's been harmful to the indigenous populations. It's been harmful to sacred ground. It's just ridiculous. So he's ending the pipeline. If you don't know about the pipeline, I could sit here and talk about that for a while, but I won't. But there were protests on it, arrests about it. It was bad. So he's ending that pipeline and reversing Trump's decision to allow land development at the Bears Ears and Grand Staircase Escalante National Monuments in Utah and at the Northeast Canyons and Seamounts Marine National Monuments in New England. President Obama had set aside protection for wildlife in 2016, so he's bringing some of that back. As far as racial equity, he talked a lot yesterday in his inauguration speech about racial equity and the work that needs to be done. So he is trying to do that through the federal government level. President Biden has appointed Susan Rice as the domestic policy advisor. If that name sounds familiar to you, it is because Susan Rice has served under the Obama administration and the Clinton administration. She was the Assistant Secretary for African American Affairs under the Clinton administration. She was also in the running for Secretary of State for President Obama's second term, but she withdrew her name because she allegedly wanted to continue the work of the administration and didn't want to go through the confirmation process. She was also National Security Advisor under the Obama administration from 2013 to 2017. So if that name sounds familiar to you, that's why. So some of the work that she and the team and others will be doing is to analyze the federal money and make sure it's going to communities of color, and other places that are disenfranchised equitably. That is so needed. I can't even. Yeah. They're also looking to dismantle that stupid, racist, ridiculous 1776 commission that I talked about on Tuesday. I'm not even going to recount that. Something else that they're looking to do for racial equity work is to count non-citizens in the U.S. Census again. If you don't recall, Trump's administration was doing a lot when it came to the 2020 census. This would essentially reverse Trump's order that he did last summer to not count undocumented Americans. What does that do? It impacts the distribution of federal money and resources and skews the numbers, basically, is what Trump was trying to do. So they're looking to count non-citizens or undocumented Americans in the U.S. Census, again, reversing that Trump policy. They're also going to strengthen workplace discrimination protections based on sexual orientation and gender identity. This is also needed as we need more inclusion in the workplace. And I'll just leave that there. And not just and I don't just mean like in corporate America. I mean across the board, or whatever your workplace is, church, streets, whatever. We need more inclusion. He's also looking for immigration, defend the Dreamers program. They're already making some changes and protections for DACA. DHS has paused some deportations, so he's already looking to make some large changes there. He's also ending we called it the Muslim travel ban. It restricted travel and immigration to the U.S. from Syria, Iran, Iraq, Sudan, Libya, Somalia, and Yemen. And then Eritrea, Nigeria, Myanmar, and Kyrgyzstan, and I don't know how to say that one, and Tanzania were added in 2020. So he's reversing that and instructing to restart visa applications for those countries. He's also changing the priorities for ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Trump had basically made sweeping changes in ICE. If you are not aware, even in Atlanta, Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms kicked them out basically, and refused to do their dirty work. So Trump made a lot of changes when it came to the arrest priorities of ICE. There's actually a documentary on Netflix that really details some of the work ICE has done in the past. I don't remember the name of. I'll have to find it. I don't remember the name of it. I think it's Immigration Nation. That's what it's called. That details some of the work ICE does. So if you're interested in learning more about their work, then you can watch that. But the point of the matter is, President Biden's administration is reversing some of those arrest priorities, and that is also needed. The quote was, they want to set civil immigration enforcement policies that best protect the American people and are in line with our values and priorities. In other words, make legislation and policies that aren't racist and just based on lies. He's also stopping the border wall construction, something that never really took off because even when they did construct something, it fell down. So he's ending that border wall construction completely and moving the money elsewhere because, it's somewhere else where it's needed. He is keeping protections for a group of Liberians in the country. They've been in the United States for a lot of years. They'll be able to stay. They are part of the deferred deportation, all of that. So it's been extended for an additional year. Their protections have been extended for an additional year. Trump spent the last part of his administration sending out a lot of policies and regulatory actions and legislation. And of course, he did all the pardons and all of that other stuff. So he's going to freeze some of those last minute Trump administration regulatory actions. It was a lot, so I won't even go through the list. He's freezing them. He is also creating an executive branch ethics doctrine. He wants every appointee to sign an ethics pledge to, quote, uphold the independence of the Department of Justice. I think that this is great because needed across the board, period. He is also going to sign apparently 10 executive actions or 10 executive orders today. Most of those are dealing with COVID-19 response. Of course, it's something that is heavily needed. He wants to increase vaccinations to 100 million vaccine shots. The Trump administration only distributed 17 million shots while they were in office. It sounds like it has been a mess, honestly. There wasn't really the traditional sharing of information. So the Biden's coronavirus team is just now really getting a handle on the state of affairs when it comes to vaccination distribution. He also plans to sign an order today to require people to wear masks in airports, airplanes, trains, and trading ships, and to mandate that international travelers have tested negative for COVID-19 before they depart for the U.S., much like some other countries countries have already been doing. He also wants a majority of kindergarten or K through 8 schools to open within his first 100 days. Now here is where it gets really good. He's going to reimburse schools for additional cleaning, equipment, and any other costs that are associated with getting the students back into the classroom. He's trying to direct some of the money from the $1.9 trillion, is it trillion? I think it's trillion. $1.9 trillion stimulus package that was announced earlier this month that they're working on, they being President's administration and Congress. He also wants to use the Defense Production Act to accelerate production of some PPE items and other resources that are needed, and increase the federal reimbursement from 75% to 100% of the cost for National Guard personnel and emergency supplies. No shade, but can we get some more Lysol? Just saying, sister running kind of low. I've got more show coming up for you next. I will talk about Madam Vice President's first action and my hope for Dr. Jill Biden's program, as it is customary for a First Lady to develop one while they are in office. So I'll tell you more about that coming up next.
Tiffanie Talks.
Welcome back to Tiffanie Talks with Tiffanie Lanelle. I'm your host, Tiffanie Lanelle. If you missed any of the last portion of the show, first portion of the show, you can always tune in to the podcast. It is available every day after the show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Make sure you follow, subscribe, and share so that you can stay up to date and your friends can stay up to date and your family can stay up to date on everything that's going on with Tiffanie Talks. So President Biden was not the only one who got straight to work yesterday. Madam Vice President Kamala Harris also got to work and swore in 3 new senators into office. 1 being Reverend Raphael Warnock and 2 being Jon Ossoff, both from Georgia. They are the 2 that everybody had their eye on in Georgia. If you missed it somehow, with everything going on, they did win, now giving Democrats the majority. It is a slight majority because Madam Vice President would be the tiebreaker, but it's a majority. We'll take it. Madam Vice President also swore in Senator Padilla, who is her successor for her state seat in California. Now, all 3 of these are pretty big deals. Reverend Warnock is the first Black person to represent Georgia. Jon Ossoff is the first Jewish senator representing Georgia. And Senator Padilla is California's first Latino senator. Ossoff is also 33, so he is the youngest senator in chamber currently, and he's the youngest to be sworn in since President Joe Biden was sworn in at the age of 30 in 1973. This speaks to the diversity that is coming. I'm so glad to see it, and I really look forward to the work that they are all going to do as senators. So if you are in any of those 3 districts or any of those, reach out. We talked before about, I said districts, but y'all know what I mean. We talked before about reaching out to hold your leadership accountable. Send an email. Greetings, Senator Padilla. Welcome. It's warm here. Here are my concerns, or I'm one of your constituents. Just want to introduce myself. Like, reach out to their office. Get in touch with your senators. My hope for the new senators extends my hope for our First Lady. Our First Lady is very big on education. She's very big on children. So I'm hoping that, every First Lady comes out with a program. Melania's was the best. I'm gonna be honest, I still don't know what that means. I have no idea what that program was about or what it was for or anything else. My forever First Lady Michelle Obama's program was, of course, about getting active, health, fitness. She made sweeping changes with as far as lunch policies, what was fed to children in schools, equitable access to food in schools, resources being distributed for recess. She made sweeping changes about America getting active. So my hope and my assumption is that Dr. Jill Biden will do the same as far as education. I've said it before and it bears repeating. America is 27th in education. That's it. I went to look it up to see if it changed the other day. It hasn't. I'm sorry to tell you. I found one article that said, we were number one, and I was like, no, we're not. That's not true. And it was like some skewed list that I had found. Anyway, we're low, okay? Low. Like, drop it down low on the totem pole when it comes to education. And then I found out yesterday that the SAT is removing the essay portion of the exam. I do not think, while I hate standardized testing with every fiber of my being, I've always been really terrible at standardized testing. I'm bad at testing, period. You give me a good Microsoft Word doc and I will type up a hell of a paper, sermon, whatever. You put a test in front of me and all of a sudden my brain just freezes, especially if it's like a timed, you have to sit in silence type of test. I personally cannot do that. Hate it. No. Now you let me listen to some music while I'm testing and, give me my notes or something. I got you. But regular standardized testing, I hate it. Hate everything about it. So I say all that to say, I do think that some changes need to be made to the standardized testing in the way that it is done in this country. I don't think that's it. I don't think removing portions of standardized testing is the answer that we need. I do think that the way we teach, what we teach, and how standardized tests are administered should change. I think that if you have a student like me who needs music to work effectively, to get the brain going or whatever, or you need snacks or something, I think that should be allowed. Maybe it's an accommodation that has to be approved, that's fine, but it should at least be allowed. I think that preparation, for standardized testing should absolutely change. It needs to increase. This new math that students are doing, I don't know what was wrong with the old math. I'm sure I sound like an old auntie. I don't know what was wrong with the old way of doing math. I don't understand the new math, and then you got to show the work. And did you get to the right answer? That's the crux of the problem. Did you arrive at 2 + 2 = 4? That's really what I care about. I think that in addition to that, we need to figure out how to teach basic life skills. We live in a digital age, and when I was in school, I was in a business prep class, or I don't even remember what it was called. But the point of the matter is, I increased my typing speed. I learned how to type without even looking at the keyboard. And all of these sound like really small, but I'm saying this to say it taught me how to it helped me learn different things for being in the workforce. And it doesn't matter what workforce you're in, nonprofit, doctor, nurse, whatever. At some point, you're going to have to send an email. At some point, you're going to have to apply for a job or a position or a career or whatever. Or you're going to have to know what to look for. If you're doing the hiring, you want to own your own business, you need to know what to look for on somebody else's resume or cover letter or email or whatever. There are just standard things that seem to have gone out the window, or that just aren't being taught when it comes to adulting. Adulting is hard. It's hard. So if we can get some adulting training in school, I don't know what that looks like. I don't have the answers, but it is needed is all I'm saying. So I'm hoping that Dr. Jill Biden, our now First Lady, will develop some education program, some education reform program to try and get our country in a better spot when it comes to education. And that may include, again, rebuilding some of our international relationships relationships to see what other countries are doing that are much higher on the totem pole when it comes to education. There's no reason that during the pandemic, we should have had as many issues as we had getting education to our students. But that also goes to the federal resources that I was talking about earlier in the show. We need to make sure that our children and our communities have access to equitable resources. The fact that cable companies, first of all, cable companies had to essentially provide low-cost internet. You should have done that anyway. That should have already been a thing. But not only that, the low-cost internet, the speed was terrible. Just terrible. We need equitable access to resources. Our entire infrastructure should not have slowed down just because everybody was at home on the internet. Like, why are we not ahead of the game? And quite frankly, had the Trump administration not dismantled a lot of the prep work that President Obama was trying to lay out, we may have been in a better spot. But he didn't, they didn't, and here we are. So I really hope that it's going to all have to work together, and it's going to have to work together in different areas. But I am hoping that there are some major education reforms and education sweeps. The new Secretary of Education for Biden's administration is none other than Dr. Miguel Cardona. He is, or was, the head of Connecticut's public schools. He served as principal at the age of 28 in Connecticut. His primary background is in elementary school and secondary education. But I think this is just another proof that Joe Biden is sticking to his pledges. He promised to hire a teacher for the Secretary of Education during his campaign. He's made good on that. Cardona served as the assistant superintendent in Meriden, Connecticut, which serves almost 9,000 students. That's where he grew up at. That's where he went to school. He also got his master's degree and doctorate of education from, what was the name of that school? The University of Connecticut. So he's been in Connecticut. So I think that this is really good. I think that in looking at Cardona's background, this will go hand in hand. If Dr. Jill Biden does decide to make her program about education, I think that this will work. This will go well together. President Biden is trying to triple the amount of financing that goes to K through 12. Right now, it's only 10% of the budget. It needs to be more. So he is proposing tripling that funding. Of course, during his campaign, he also proposed forgiving student loan debt. Please do. Hallelujah. And making community colleges tuition free. So I'm hoping that all of that happens and then some in order to increase equitable access to education, quality education in our country. And I look forward to seeing what Dr. Cardona does as the Secretary of Education, because that last one we had, Jesus. Trash. Terrible. I never want to see Betsy DeVos again in any capacity, ever. In any office, never. Just terrible. Anyway, I've got much more show coming up for you that you don't want to miss. I'm definitely going to talk about some new legislation in Illinois, and you also don't want to miss the throwback story. My birthday is tomorrow, so I have a funny birthday story that I'm going to share with you. Yeah, just stay tuned. So, more show coming up next.
We're taking a quick break. More Tiffanie Talks after these messages.
Welcome back to bit my tongue. Welcome back to Tiffanie Talks with Tiffanie Lanelle. So Super Bowl. Super Bowl is going to air February 7th at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and two of my favorite artists are going to be there. Jasmine Sullivan and Her. So Her is going to be performing America the Beautiful right before kickoff. Jasmine Sullivan and Eric Church will be delivering the national anthem before the beginning of the game. If you have not already heard it, listen to it, watch the Tiny Desk concert. Jasmine Sullivan released, she's calling it an EP, everybody else is calling it an album. I don't really care what you call it. It is a body of work that is superb, if you will. I love it. It's called Hotels. If you haven't listened to it, definitely go check it out. And check out the Tiny Desk concert that she did, where Her actually came and did the song that they have together on Hotels. They did it on the Tiny Desk concert. Love both of these Black women. Cannot wait to hear them both at the Super Bowl. Even though my Falcons won't be there, it's okay. I'm hurt. We got a new coach and a new GM. We'll see what we do in the next season. That's all I'm gonna say there. But super excited to see them perform. In other news, Fat Joe and DJ Khaled have decided to launch a joint OnlyFans account. It's not what it sounds like, I promise. They want to deliver the quote light. They wanted to create an account for their fans that brings positive vibes and inspiration. It'll be them dining together in the studio together with some special guests, playing basketball, stuff like that. But they really just wanted to, they've been friends for a really long time. They're both Terror Squad members. So they wanted to give subscribers just an inside look, basically. They said it'll be content and stuff on there that won't be anywhere else. You can subscribe to the joint venture for $20 per month, with regular content starting this coming Monday, January 25th. That I'm just here to report the news. That's all I got for you. Jay-Z is also making news, so I'll tell you more about that coming up. And I also am going to tell you about some new changes that Illinois is making that I'm really excited about, and I hope it starts or prompts other states to follow suit as well. So all of that and the throwback story that I told you about that was coming up, it's coming up. So you don't want to miss the rest of the show. If you missed any of the first part of the show, be sure go to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whichever you use, both if you want, and subscribe, follow right now, and then share it. Do all of that because you want to make sure. I love when people tell me, oh, I got an alert that you loaded your episode. I'm about to listen. I love getting those texts. So do all of that and keep it locked. More Tiffanie Talks coming up.
We're taking a quick break. More Tiffanie Talks after these messages.
Welcome back to Tiffanie Talks with Tiffanie Lanelle. Illinois is one of my favorite states right now. Just hands down. Governor J.B. Pritzker has announced that they have passed a Pre-Trial Fairness Act. What does that mean? So I'm going to go over highlights for, those who don't know. Illinois has been making a lot of moves in the criminal justice reformation direction. Pre-trial, there's a couple of things that happen pre-trial. There can be pre-trial diversion. That's normally for drug offenses. If you are arrested for like marijuana or whatever else, then they have pre-trial diversion programs or drug court. That means you, instead of going to jail, this is normally for first-time offenders, you can do community service, or it depends on the area, the state, and all of that, but there are programs. Pre-Trial Fairness Act essentially gets rid of wealth-based detention or pre-trial. So if someone gets arrested, their bail is $250,000. You normally have to pay about 10% of that in order to get out, which would be $25,000. Most people don't have $25,000 just sitting around in bank accounts or under mattress cushions. So they have to sit in jail because they cannot afford bond. That's stupid. There are so many innocent people awaiting trial in jail just because they cannot afford bond. So Pretrial Fairness Act essentially will get rid of the wealth-based bond system in Illinois. Illinois is the first state to pass this. They're not the first one to try. New Jersey and California has had similar measures that they've attempted to try, but they've fallen short in actually passing legislation to assist in this matter. But Illinois has been doing the damn thing, okay? They legalized marijuana in 2019. It went into effect in 2020. They also expunged over almost 500,000. It was about 492,000 non-felony cannabis-related arrest records were expunged. Pardons have been issued for almost 10,000 low-level cannabis convictions and so much more. So Illinois is really keep up the good work. Round of applause, because I think this is amazing. This will go a long way, because if you are convicted of a cannabis-related, marijuana-related offense, for the most part, you cannot start a cannabis business. So that already knocks out a lot of minority ownership in the marijuana industry, which is now on track to be I think, $25 billion industry. Billion with a B. So the fact that y'all have been arresting us, I'm sorry, $20 billion. I had to look at my notes. $20 billion legal business in the country, which is approaching the $70 billion wine market in the country. That's on track to be $70 billion for wine by 2030. In the 25 years since California legalized marijuana, it's made $20 billion. Illinois was the 11th state to make it legal. They then expunged, like I said, hundreds of thousands of records. They are making it right. And now they have a Pretrial Fairness Act. I cannot even express how excited I am about this. This needs to happen across the board. There are a lot of state programs, local programs, organizations trying to end bail bonds, trying to end cash bail, trying to reform this because it is a huge problem. The article that I read talks about a woman who got arrested. She had her bail was $250,000, which meant she had to pay 10% of that, $25,000. She didn't have it. She sat in jail for 571 days awaiting trial while she was innocent. She was innocent, waited 571 days. That is absolutely insane and unjust. She lost her job. She almost lost her kids. She lost her housing. She lost her business. And she, of course, had to pay thousands of dollars in all of the fines and fees that you have to pay for court costs and getting a lawyer. It impacts so much more than the person that's arrested, and it impacts even more when that person is innocent. No one should be sitting in jail for something they didn't do. Another story, Khalif Browder. If you don't know that story, I'm not going to get into it because I don't feel like being mad for the rest of the day. But he got arrested for allegedly stealing a backpack that he did not steal and sat in jail for a couple of years. After he got out, he was never the same. He suffered many abuses, was in solitary confinement for a good portion of his time in jail, which is inhumane to say the least. Solitary confinement is a whole other conversation. He got out. Of course, mental health care in this country is trash. He never really got the help that he needed and ended up committing suicide. And his mother died shortly after he did. These are just two stories. This is a problem. Not only this, but even now when minorities do get released for minor drug offenses, they can't participate in this $20 billion industry because they have a conviction. Not only that, to get into the business is the costs are astronomical. It can cost starting at $250,000 to get into the cannabis industry. You have to rent a warehouse, pay salaries, grow it, figure out partnerships and build relationships in that network and in that community. It is a lot. So if you don't have the connections, if you don't have the money, if you don't have the relationships, if you don't have the knowledge of growing it, if you don't have the capital to start it, it cuts you out. That cuts out many minorities in the business. But y'all been arresting us for years for minor offenses, and now you're trying to lock out those same people out of a $20 billion industry. It's asinine and ridiculous. Jay-Z is trying to help with this. He is launching a fund to invest in minority-owned cannabis startups. He's starting with $10 million to try and help people of color get into this $20 billion industry. If you don't know, Jay-Z launched his own cannabis company last year called Monogram. It has pre-rolled joints. It has all the things. I'm not going to go down the product list, but like even some of his joints sell for $50. So we could get into that whole conversation about cost and all of that. I'm not doing all that. That's not the point of the story. The point of the story is he has gotten into the industry and is now trying to put money back into the community and get minorities into the business that the system is trying to lock us out of. And I think that is super, super dope. Super dope. It's a $20 billion industry. Never mind the fact, marijuana should just be legal. And I keep saying this, like, legalize it. No one has ever died from marijuana. In the words of Cat Williams, it is just a plant that if you should so happen to light it, there are some side effects. Hungry, happy, sleepy, whatever else he said. That is it. I was watching a documentary. Y'all know I'm big on documentaries. What's that? The second one I've mentioned during the show? I love documentaries. And I always forget the name of this documentary, but it's on Netflix. But Snoop Dogg was in there and he was talking about the differences of, people in a room with alcohol and people in a room with marijuana. You have people drunk drinking in a room. There's bound to be a fight. There's bound to be an argument. There's bound to be violence. There's bound to be, the list goes on and on. You put marijuana in a room with people, they're not gonna do nothing but eat and sleep. I agree with Snoop. I think that if we can put legal limits on alcohol, do the same thing for marijuana and move on. The problem is the powers that be, the system's trying to lock minorities out of this $20 billion, which it'll far past that number, but they don't see the monetary value in legalizing it yet. And so until that happens, we won't get sweeping changes like we need to. But it is holding minorities back in multiple ways. I live in a county where it is decriminalized, and basically if they catch you with it, you get a fine. That's it. But I live in a state where that is not the case. That's not the standard. You go 45 minutes outside of where I live, you're going to jail, period. And so I think that we need some standardizing of the system, but we need some growth and changes in the system. Stop locking people up for under an ounce of marijuana. Stop locking people up for an ounce of marijuana. Stop locking people up unless they are driving and smoking it at the same time. It's stupid. It's ridiculous. No one's ever died from it. And it could be a huge cause of growth in the economy. Not only that, I'm sure violence would go down. Everybody would be high. I'm just saying. I'm adding light and laughter into this story because it's so ridiculous. Seriously, add a legal limit y'all can't even really test for it nationwide. You can't test, you are this high. You can't test that. There's no test that does that yet. Develop a test to test for it so that if people are driving under the influence, they're not driving too much under the influence. Put a legal limit on it and move on. We've done it with alcohol, which used to be prohibited. Do it the same with marijuana. Like, it only became prohibited because the government was telling lies and saying, oh, Mexicans and blacks are gonna come steal your white women. I'm not making that up. That is literally how marijuana became illegal. Not a joke. So come on, like, it's just time. Legalize it. Stop locking the minorities out of this multi-billion-dollar industry. Stop locking minorities up for something that's making someone else billions of dollars, and create some more programs and funds to help minorities get into this business. You want to give reparations? Start there. And I did say start. But like, kudos to Illinois for all of the sweeping changes that they're making. The Pretrial Fairness Act, legalizing marijuana, expunging so many records. This is amazing work, and I hope that they keep going and keep inspiring other states and lawmakers to do the same and pass sweeping legislation changes in this area. I've got more show for you. You do not want to miss my throwback story. So that's coming up.
Agree? Disagree? Be heard. Record your feedback on today's show and email it to tiffanytalks@bossfm.com. You may hear yourself on a future show.
Welcome back to Tiffany Talks with Tiffanie Lanelle. That's me. Tomorrow is a holiday. It's my birthday. In a pandemic, unfortunately, birthdays, tomorrow just kind of feels like it's just going to be another day. I did take off. Don't worry, you'll still get a new show tomorrow. I'm still doing the show. Tomorrow will be a special edition of my show. I've invited some friends to come and hopefully share safe for public consumption stories about our friendships and time together. But tomorrow is just, I'm trying to stay safe, so I'm not going anywhere, doing anything. I'm not traveling like I normally would. I normally go out of the country for my birthday, but that's not happening. So yeah, I'll be here celebrating with my family and my close friends. But I'm grateful for the day. I'm grateful for another revolution. I'm grateful for another year to get to try to do it again. So, Throwback Thursday. I had a birthday party years ago. I think I was turning 19, 20 maybe. I don't remember. It was a while ago. And no, I may have been younger than that. I was definitely younger than that. I wasn't even in college yet. So I was maybe turning 18 or 19. 17. I don't remember. I was younger. I was a teenager. I had teen in the age that I was turning. I had a very small birthday party at my parents' house and had a couple of friends over, a couple from school, a couple from church. One of my friends, we were in the living room dancing and having a good time. The party had started off kind of slow, as most parties do, but we were, having a good time. My friend did some move and jumped in the air and landed on the coffee table in the living room, and it shattered. I think that was the longest time I had stood still. Like, we all just froze and just stared at the broken glass. My mom was there. So she walked out of the kitchen and just stood there. And I don't know how long we were all standing there, but it felt like an eternity. It felt like we were standing there just staring for like 20 minutes. I know that we weren't. It probably was only 30 to 40 seconds, maybe even if that long, but it felt like forever passed as we were just standing there staring at my mother's coffee table in ruins. And it was like a simple coffee table. It just, black base, and it just had the glass sitting on top of it. I don't even know what he was doing in the air, how he got high enough that he landed on the table or anything else. I don't know how it happened, but it happened. And we was scared. We were scared. It was bad. And all I remember saying is, party over. Everybody go home. Or you don't have to go home, but you got to get the hell up out of here, because that's it. My mom was actually not as mad as I thought she was going to be. She was mad, don't get me wrong. She was not happy. But because she had to replace the glass or get rid of the table and buy a whole new table, like, it was a lot. And the friend that broke it was from church, and she knew his mom really well. So that Sunday at church, when I tell you, he was literally quivering, trying to figure out what to say. It was just bad. It was really bad. It's just, so if you're listening, I'm sorry again. And thank you for not killing me and my friends. Because that could have went really left really quickly. But other than that, it was a good birthday. For the most part, I have a good time on my birthdays. I don't remember at what point I started traveling, but it was definitely after college. I graduated college in a recession, so it wasn't right after college, because poor. But I have gone to Cuba. I've gone to, the last time I traveled with Alex, who's coming up next. We went to San Francisco because our birthdays are 7 days apart. And that was such a relaxing trip. Oh my goodness. I wish I could even just do that again. We stayed in a really nice house off the pier. It was just great. Amazing trip. I wanted to go to Mexico this year, and then COVID started ramping back up, and that was a no-go on that. So next year, Alex and I have promised each other we are out this piece. Like, we gotta go. Just period. Gotta go away for our birthdays. But this year I'll be spending it with my family and my friends who have told me what I'm doing. I got asked one question like 2 weeks ago. I said I wasn't going to do anything, and my sisters took it over from there. They were like, bet. And they've planned out my whole, like, they've divvied up the days and have planned out my whole weekend. So I'm a little scared, but I'm a little excited. I only know a little bit of what's happening this weekend. Everything else has been kept a surprise. So I guess I'll tell you Monday what I'm doing or what I did. That's allowable for me to share, but I really have no idea. I'm just happy to be here, to have made it through 2020 and be here to celebrate another birthday. I'm very excited for that part, and I'm very excited to be off. I don't get to sleep in, so that sucks. I have to go get a COVID test and a flu shot for school, but I'm probably going to come back and relax. Not probably, I am definitely going to come back and relax, and I did schedule myself a massage, so I know I have those plans, but other than that, everything's a surprise. So I'm excited, but you definitely want to tune in tomorrow because I'm going to have a special edition of Tiffanie Talks, and I guarantee some laughs. If you need laughs tomorrow, even if you don't, you should tune in. So make sure you tune in to my birthday episode tomorrow, and you should really be tuning in anyway because you tune in anyway every Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern. So if you missed any part of the show today, that's when you should start listening to Boss FM. You should at least start listening at 11 a.m. so you can catch my show. And then coming up next is Unmuted Nation with Alex Haynes. He's 1 to 3 p.m. You don't want to miss that either. So just keep it locked here. If you are listening to me live, don't forget to go subscribe and follow the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And that way, if you miss any of the show today, or if you miss any future shows or past shows, they're all there. You can listen to them all. So Keep it locked for Alex Haynes next on Unmuted Nation. And make sure you tune in tomorrow. And that's going to do it for me. Make sure to be safe, be blessed, and let God be God today. Have a blessed one.
Follow Tiffanie Lanelle on social media at Tiff Lanelle on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Tiffanie Talks and the Tiffanie Talks podcast are registered trademarks. Each show is broadcast and powered by Boss FM.